Teller Grimshaw was 8 years old when he disappeared, and the last thing his best friend Kirby saw was the red balloon. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon in October 1968, right outside Roosevelt Elementary in Canton, Ohio. The sky was gray and cold, and the wind carried dead leaves across the empty parking lot. Teller stood by the fence, frozen, staring at the man in the clown suit. The clown was tall, taller than any adult Kirby had ever seen, and his costume looked old and dirty, like it had been buried in mud and dug up again. The paint on his face was smudged, running down his cheeks like melted wax. One eye was painted black, a perfect circle that looked like a hole leading nowhere. The clown smiled, but the smile did not move. It just stayed there, fixed and wrong. Only 3% of you watching will actually subscribe. That means 97% of you will just take without giving back. If this story matters to you, if you want more like it, like and subscribe now. It costs you nothing but means everything to this channel. And before we continue, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now. Whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, don't just sit back, show me you're here. Now let's dive into the story. Kirby stood on the school steps, his backpack heavy on his shoulders, watching his best friend walk closer to the fence. He wanted to yell, wanted to run and grab Teller's arm, but his legs would not move. It felt like something was holding him in place, pressing down on his chest, making it hard to breathe. The clown tilted his head and held out the red balloon. His gloves were bright red, the only clean thing about him. "Want to see something funny?" the clown whispered, and even though Kirby was 20 feet away, he heard it clearly, like the words were spoken right into his ear. Teller took one step forward, then another. His hand reached out toward the balloon. Kirby blinked. That was all, just one blink. When he opened his eyes, Teller was gone. The balloon floated up into the gray sky, twisting in the wind, rising higher and higher until it disappeared behind the clouds. The clown was gone too. But Kirby saw it, just for a second, a white van with no windows turning the corner at the end of the street. It moved slowly, like it had all the time in the world. The engine made no sound. Kirby's throat opened and he screamed, a sound so loud it hurt, and teachers came running from inside the school. By the time they reached the fence, there was nothing. No clown, no van, no Teller. The police came an hour later. They searched the playground, the empty lot behind the school, the woods that stretched toward the highway. They found Teller's shoes near the fence, small blue sneakers with the laces still tied. Nothing else. No footprints, no tire tracks, no sign of where he went. Teller's mother arrived in a station wagon, her face white and shaking, and when the officer told her they had found nothing, she collapsed in the mud, her hands clawing at the wet ground like she could dig her son out of the earth. Kirby sat on the school steps, wrapped in a blanket someone had given him, and watched the police tape go up around the fence. His hands were shaking, his chest hurt. A detective with gray hair and tired eyes crouched down in front of him. "Can you tell me what you saw, son?" he asked gently. Kirby looked at him, then at the fence, then at the empty street where the van had disappeared. He opened his mouth and the words came out slow and quiet. He had black eyes. The clown had black eyes. Just one, painted on, like a hole. The detective wrote it down in a little notebook, but Kirby saw the look on his face. He did not believe him. No one would. The detective stood up and patted Kirby's shoulder. "Kids have big imaginations," he said to another officer. "Probably just a story that got out of hand." But Kirby knew what he saw. He knew Teller was gone, and he knew, deep in his bones, that the clown was still out there, watching, waiting, smiling that smile that never moved. 6 months before Teller disappeared, The stories started. It was spring 1968, and the weather was warm and bright, the kind of days when children played outside until their mothers called them in for dinner. At Roosevelt Elementary during recess, groups of kids started whispering about the funny man. They said he stood outside the fence during lunch, watching them play. Some said he wore a clown suit. Others said he just stood there, not moving, not saying anything. The teachers heard the whispers and laughed. "You kids and your imaginations," Mrs. Harlow said, shaking her head. Parents were told at pickup time, and they smiled and waved it away. "Just playground talk," they said. "Kids scare each other with stories." But the stories did not stop. They grew. Kirby heard them too, but he did not think much of it at first. He was only 8, and 8-year-olds told strange stories all the time. But then his friend Patsy came to school crying. She said the funny man had waved at her from across the street when her mom dropped her off. "He had red gloves," she said, her voice shaking, "and his face looked wrong, like his paint was dripping." Mrs. Harlow sent her to the nurse. That same week, 3 more kids said they saw him, always near the school, always at the edges, standing by trees or parked cars, always wearing the same faded costume, always with the red gloves, and every single one of them mentioned the same thing. One black eye painted on his face, a perfect circle, like a target. Kirby's older sister Maren was 16 and worked part-time at the Canton Public Library. She was smart, the kind of smart that made adults uncomfortable, always asking questions no one wanted to answer. When Kirby told her about the funny man, she did not laugh. She leaned forward across the dinner table and asked him to describe everything: the costume, the gloves, the black eye. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. "I've heard that before," she said softly. Their parents were not listening. Their father read the newspaper. Their mother washed dishes. Maren looked at Kirby with serious eyes. "I'll check something tomorrow." The next day after school, Maren brought home a stack of newspapers from the library archives. She spread them across the floor of her bedroom and told Kirby to close the door. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a clipping from a newspaper in Springfield, Illinois. The article was from 1967, just a year earlier. It talked about children reporting a man in a clown costume near their school. Parents complained. Police investigated. Nothing was found. "Now look at this one," Maren said, sliding another paper toward him. Pennsylvania, 1966. Same story, same description. Tall man, faded costume, red gloves, black eye painted on his face. Kirby felt his stomach tighten. "It's the same person," he whispered. Maren nodded slowly. "Or the same kind of person. I found one from Georgia too. Different towns, different years, but the same clown." Kirby stared at the newspapers, his heart beating fast. "Why isn't anyone doing anything?" he asked. Maren shook her head. "Because no one believes it. The articles say the police think it's mass hysteria. They think kids are copying each other's stories. But look." She pulled out another clipping, this one older, the paper yellow and fragile. It was from a small town in Georgia, 1966. The headline read, "Local Parents Concerned Over Stranger Reports." Beneath the article was a photo of children playing at a playground. Maren pointed to the background, where the image was blurry and faded. There, barely visible behind a chain-link fence, was a white van, and standing next to it, a figure, tall, wearing what looked like a costume, watching the children. Kirby felt cold all over. He looked at his sister, and she looked back at him with fear in her eyes. "Someone is doing this," she said quietly, "and they've been doing it for years." That night, Kirby could not sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about the funny man, thinking about all the towns and all the children who had seen him. He thought about the black eye, the smile that did not move, the red gloves that were the only clean thing on him. And he wondered, in the dark silence of his room, if the funny man was standing outside right now, watching his window, waiting for someone to notice him. Somewhere far away, in another town, another child was telling their parents about the man in the clown suit, and no one was listening. After Teller disappeared, Kirby could not stop thinking. He could not eat. He could not focus in school. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the red balloon floating away into the gray sky. He saw Teller's empty shoes by the fence. He heard the clown's whisper in his ear, even though the clown had been 20 feet away. "Want to see something funny?" The words played over and over in his mind like a broken record. At night, he lay awake staring at his bedroom window, terrified that he would see red gloves pressed against the glass. His parents told him to stop thinking about it. "The police are handling it," his father said. But Kirby knew the police had stopped looking. They called it a runaway case. They said Teller probably wandered off and got lost. But Kirby knew better. Teller did not run away. He was taken. Maren saw the darkness growing in her brother's eyes, and she made a decision. She would help him find answers, even if no one else would. Together, they turned her bedroom into a research station. She pinned a map of the United States to the wall and marked every town where the clown had been reported: Canton, Ohio; Springfield, Illinois; Harrisburg, Pennsylvania; Augusta, Georgia. There were more, smaller towns that never made the newspapers, places where parents whispered to each other but never called the police. Maren drew lines connecting the towns. There was no clear pattern, but every sighting happened near a school. Every sighting happened at dusk. And every single time, a white van with no windows was seen nearby, always moving just before police arrived. Kirby started keeping a notebook. He wrote down everything: dates, locations, descriptions. He interviewed kids at school who had seen the funny man before Teller disappeared. Most were too scared to talk, but a few told him details that made his blood run cold. A girl named Stella said she saw the clown standing under a tree near the playground in September. "He did not blink," she whispered. I stared at him for a whole minute, and he did not blink once. A boy named Roe said he saw the white van parked outside his house one evening. "I looked through the back window," he said, his voice shaking. There were more than one. 3 clowns sitting in the dark, just sitting there, not talking, not moving, just watching my house. Maren typed letters on her mother's typewriter and mailed them to police stations in every town where sightings had been reported. She used official-sounding language, pretending to be a journalist researching a story. Most never responded, but one did. A detective from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, named Wallace Grendel. His letter arrived 3 weeks after Teller disappeared, and when Maren opened it, her hands were shaking. Inside was a handwritten note and a stack of photocopied drawings. "Dear Miss Kirby," the letter began, "I received your inquiry regarding the clown sightings. I am not supposed to share case files with civilians, but I believe you deserve to know the truth. We think it is a gang, a group of men using clown costumes as a cover to abduct children, but no one will believe us. The mayor shut down our investigation, said it would cause panic. I am sending you witness drawings from our files. Every child described the same thing." Kirby and Maren spread the drawings across the bedroom floor. There were 12 of them, all done by different children from different towns. The drawings were crude, done in crayon and pencil, but the details were identical. Tall figure, faded costume, red gloves, and in every single drawing, the same black eye painted on the left side of the clown's face. A perfect circle, dark and empty. Kirby stared at the drawings and felt his stomach twist. This was not imagination. This was real. Someone or a group of people was traveling across the country, dressing as clowns and taking children, and no one was stopping them. That afternoon, Kirby saw the van. He was walking home from school with Marin, and there it was, parked across the street near the corner store. White, no windows, rust along the edges. The engine was running. Kirby grabbed Marin's arm and pointed. "That's it," he whispered. "That's the van." Marin's face went pale. She told Kirby to stay behind her, and she started walking toward it, her hands clenched into fists. But before she could get close, the van pulled away slowly, deliberately, like it wanted them to see it leave. Kirby's heart pounded in his chest. He looked at Marin, and she looked back at him with fear and anger in her eyes. "We need to tell someone," she said. They ran to the school and found Mrs. Harlow in her classroom. Kirby told her everything, the van, the drawings, the letters from Detective Grendel. Mrs. Harlow listened, her face tight and serious. She promised to call the police, but when they returned with Kirby and Marin 20 minutes later, the van was gone. That night, Kirby could not sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind rattle his window, and then he heard it. Laughter, soft and low, coming from outside. His whole body went cold. He sat up slowly and looked at the window. There, pressed against the glass, were 2 red gloves. The fingers moved slowly, tapping the glass one by one. Tap, tap, tap. Kirby opened his mouth to scream, but no sound came out. The gloves pulled away, and for just a second he saw a face in the darkness. White paint, smudged and dripping, a black eye, a smile that did not move. Then it was gone. Kirby ran to his parents' room, shaking and crying, but by the time his father looked out the window with a flashlight, there was nothing there, just the empty street, just the dark. Kirby's father did not believe him about the red gloves on the window, but he believed something was wrong. The whole neighborhood did. After Teller disappeared, fear spread through Canton like a disease. Parents stopped letting their children walk to school alone. Mothers stood on porches watching the streets. Fathers organized patrols, groups of men with flashlights and baseball bats who walked the blocks every evening, looking for anything suspicious. Kirby's father joined them. Every night at dusk, he kissed Kirby's mother goodbye, grabbed his bat from the hall closet, and walked out into the cold October air with 5 other men from the street. They checked alleyways. They looked behind dumpsters. They wrote down the license plates of every white van they saw, but they never found anything. The funny man was a ghost. Then, 2 more children disappeared, one from Springfield, Illinois. A girl named Constance, 10 years old, last seen walking home from school. Witnesses said she stopped to look at something across the street, then walked toward it. She never made it home. The second disappearance happened in Augusta, Georgia, just 3 days later. A boy named Felix, 9 years old, vanished from a playground while his mother talked to another parent 20 feet away. She turned around, and he was gone. Both cases had the same details. A white van was seen in the area. A man in a clown costume was reported nearby. And in both cases, the children were last seen holding red balloons. The newspapers finally started paying attention, but they did not call it a pattern. They called it coincidence. They said parents were imagining connections that were not there. Kirby felt like he was drowning. He stopped going to school. His mother tried to make him eat, but food tasted like dust in his mouth. He sat in Marin's room for hours, staring at the map on the wall, at the drawings spread across the floor, trying to find something the police had missed. Marin barely slept. She spent every night reading old case files, newspaper clippings, anything she could find about missing children. And then she found it, a pattern no one else had seen. She called Kirby over to her desk and showed him a list she had made. Every missing child had been holding a red balloon, every single one. "They are giving them the balloons," Marin said, her voice shaking. "That's how they lure them." "The balloons are marked somehow. A signal." Kirby stared at the list, his heart pounding. "We have to tell someone." Detective Grendel called from Pennsylvania that same week. His voice on the phone was tired and angry. Marin held the receiver to her ear while Kirby leaned close to listen. "We found something," Grendel said. "An abandoned warehouse outside Harrisburg. Someone had been using it. We found dozens of clown costumes inside, old ones, faded and dirty, red gloves, face paint, everything." Marin's breath caught. "Did you find the children?" she asked. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "No," Grendel said quietly, "but we found drawings. Children's drawings on the walls, dozens of them. Stick figures, houses, families, like they were trying to remember home." Kirby felt tears burning his eyes. Marin gripped the phone so hard her knuckles turned white. "What else?" she whispered. Grendel's voice dropped even lower. "There were chains bolted to the floor, and a door in the back that led to a tunnel. We don't know where it goes yet. But Miss Kirby, I need to tell you something. This is bigger than we thought. We think there are more of them. A network. They move between towns. They coordinate." That night, the white van appeared outside Kirby's house. It was almost midnight, and Kirby was lying awake in bed when he heard his father shout from downstairs. He ran to the window and looked out. There it was, parked directly across the street under the glow of the streetlight. The side door was open. Inside, 3 figures sat in the darkness. Clowns. Their faces were pale and smudged, their costumes sagging and filthy. They did not move. They just sat there, watching the house. Kirby's father ran outside with his baseball bat, shouting, his breath making clouds in the cold air. The other men from the patrol came running from their houses, flashlights cutting through the dark. But the van did not speed away. It pulled out slowly, deliberately, like it wanted them to see, like it was showing them it could come any time it wanted. As the van rolled past, one of the clowns leaned toward the open door. Kirby saw its face clearly in the streetlight. White paint streaked with black. A smile painted on, wide and frozen, and the left eye, covered by a perfect black circle like a void. The clown raised one red-gloved hand and waved. Slow, deliberate. The smile never moved. Kirby's father swung the bat at the van, but it was already gone, disappearing around the corner, taillights fading into the night. The men stood in the street, breathing hard, their faces pale and angry and afraid. Kirby pressed his hand against the cold window and felt his whole body shaking. They know where we live, he thought. They know who we are, and they are not afraid. His father came back inside, locked every door, checked every window. He sat in the living room with the bat across his knees, staring at the front door, waiting for something that never came. Kirby did not sleep that night. None of them did. The house was silent, but the fear was loud, pressing down on them like a weight they could not escape. Outside, somewhere in the dark, the clowns were still out there, still watching, still smiling. The sightings stopped in 1970. It happened suddenly, like someone had flipped a switch. No more reports of clowns near schools. No more white vans parked outside playgrounds. No more children holding red balloons. Parents waited for weeks, then months, expecting the funny man to return, but he never did. The police called it a solved case, even though nothing was solved. No arrests were made, no suspects were named, no children were found. Detective Grendel sent one final letter to Marin before his investigation was shut down. "The warehouse was burned," he wrote. "All evidence destroyed. My captain said the case is closed. He said we were chasing shadows, but I know what I saw. Those drawings on the walls, those chains. Someone did this. Maybe more than one person, maybe a whole group, but they are gone now, or they moved on. I am sorry I could not do more." Kirby never saw Teller again. No one did. His mother kept his room exactly the way it was, his toys on the shelf, his bed made, waiting for him to come home. She died 5 years later, her heart broken, and her mind lost to grief. Kirby grew up carrying the weight of that October day, the memory of the red balloon floating into the gray sky, the sound of his own scream echoing in his ears. He tried to move on. He finished school. He got a job. He married a kind woman who never asked too many questions about the sadness in his eyes, but he never forgot. At night, when the house was quiet, he still saw the clown's face in his mind, the smudged paint, the black eye, the smile that never moved. Marin became a journalist, just like she had pretended to be in those letters she sent to police stations. She spent years investigating missing children cases, trying to find connections, trying to uncover the truth about what happened in the late 1960s. But every lead went cold. Every witness had died or moved away. The newspapers that had printed stories about the clown sightings were gone, their archives lost or destroyed. It was like someone had erased the whole thing from history, scrubbed it clean so no one would remember. But Marin remembered, and so did Kirby. They talked about it sometimes, late at night over coffee, their voices low and sad. "Do you think they are still out there?" Kirby asked once. Marin stared into her cup for a long time before answering. "I think they moved on," she said quietly. "I think they found new towns, new children, and no one stopped them." Decades passed. Kirby's hair turned gray. His children grew up and moved away. He retired and spent his days in the small house where he had lived his whole life, the same house where the white van had parked outside his window all those years ago. One afternoon in the fall, he decided to visit Roosevelt Elementary. The school had been abandoned for years, the windows boarded up, the playground overgrown with weeds. He stood by the fence where Teller had disappeared, where they had found his shoes in the mud, and he felt the weight of all those years pressing down on him. He thought about Teller's mother collapsing in the dirt. He thought about the red balloon. He thought about all the questions that never got answered. Before he left, Kirby went to the Canton Public Library and asked to see the old case files. The librarian brought him a dusty box filled with police reports, newspaper clippings, and witness statements from 1968. He sat at a wooden table and went through them one by one, his hands shaking. Most of it he had seen before, but at the bottom of the box, he found something new. A manila folder marked "Evidence Unsorted." Inside were sketches, dozens of them, drawn by children from every town where the clown had been reported. Canton, Springfield, Harrisburg, Augusta, and more, towns he had never heard of, places so small they never made the news. Every sketch showed the same thing: the tall figure, the faded costume, the red gloves, and the black eye, that perfect black circle painted on the left side of the face. At the bottom of the folder was a single piece of paper, a note written in faded ink. It was dated 1969, a year after Teller disappeared. The handwriting was shaky, like the person who wrote it was scared. It said, "More than one. Always more than one. They work together. They watch each other's backs. If you chase one, the others disappear. We burned the costumes, but it does not matter. They will get new ones. They always do. There was no signature, just those words, haunting and final. Kirby folded the note and put it in his pocket. He closed the folder and left the library, his heart heavy. That evening, Kirby drove past Roosevelt Elementary one last time. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the empty parking lot. He slowed down as he passed the old gymnasium, the windows dark and broken. And then he saw it. For just a moment, in the window on the second floor, a red balloon, floating in the darkness, not moving, just hanging there, like it was waiting, and beneath it, barely visible, a shadow. Tall, still, watching. Kirby's breath caught in his throat. He blinked, and it was gone. Just an empty window, just the dark. He drove away slowly, his hands gripping the wheel, his heart pounding. He did not look back. He did not want to know if it was real. Some questions, he realized, were better left unanswered. Some shadows were better left alone. The funny man was never caught. His name was never known. But somewhere, in the dark places between towns, in the spaces where no one looks, Kirby believed he was still out there, still watching, still smiling, and still waiting for the next child to reach for the red balloon. If this story moved you, left you chilled, or made you think twice about the shadows outside your window, do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that will keep you awake at night. Because the truth is always scarier than fiction, and some stories never really end.